Report on the investigation of the monster incident in Koshu County Inoue Enryo. The day before yesterday, I listened to the outline of the monster investigation report given by Inoue Enryo at the Philosophy Museum, and it was as follows. Since mid-November last year, a big strange phenomenon has been appearing at the home of Sugimoto Nagayama in Ome Village, Koshu County, Yamanashi Prefecture, that is, the so-called gunai. Now, to give an outline of the strange phenomenon, the object has no form or shadow, cannot be seen with the eyes, and cannot be touched with the hands, so it is impossible to know what it is doing, but there is a strange voice in the air, which can be clearly heard. However, the voice sounds like a human whistling, and is well defined into 5 tones, and can converse with people, so anyone who asks a question about this strange voice gets an answer every time. At first, this voice could only be heard at night, but later it could be heard day and night, and before long, this became a big topic in the nearby villages, and everyone found it strange. People who wanted to hear it actually gathered at the house, fighting, and they were walking back and forth, heel to heel, and at one point people were crouching inside and outside the gate. And when anyone in the crowd asked a question, the strange voice answered back, very clearly, and everyone could hear it. Not only could it be clearly heard from a distance of 4 or 5 meters from the place where the voice was thought to be coming from, but it could also be heard from the neighboring house, and it was just like a person talking. However, the only thing that was different from the human language was that the tone sounded like a whistle. Therefore, the crowd who heard it wanted to know the source of the voice and tried various ways to pinpoint its location and direction, but sometimes it sounded as if it was inside the house, sometimes outside, sometimes it sounded like it was above, sometimes below, sometimes it was to the right, sometimes it was to the left, and each person listened from a different position, and in the end they were unable to achieve their goal. Furthermore, not only is this mysterious voice strange in tone, but various strange phenomena also appear along with it. Now, if we briefly divide the strange phenomena into 2 types, those that appear in language and those that appear in actions, first of all, in terms of language, the strange whistling voice can often guess a person's age. For example, no matter how old someone is when asked by that strange voice, they will answer without hesitation the number. Isn't this truly strange? Secondly, the voice will sense events that have happened elsewhere or in other homes and report them to people. For example, if it announces that such and such has just happened at a certain home, when you go to that home and inquire, you will find that it has indeed happened. Isn't this strange? Thirdly, it is said that the voice is able to see into the minds of others and correctly predicts them, and there is no mistake in this. This too must be called strange. Fourthly, it is said that the voice will often predict good or bad fortune that is about to befall someone else's person or family. This too must be called strange. Fifthly, the voice will often point out miraculous medicines that are effective against other people's illnesses. This is truly a myriad of strange things. In short, considering the above facts, it is clear that the monster has the power of prophecy and insight. Next, in terms of the behavior, the first strange occurrence was when a loom thread that had been hanging in one room of the house was suddenly severed without anyone noticing. The second was when someone was weaving a loom and the thread suddenly broke without any incident. The third was when a loom thread was wound around a spool and it was cut off as if it had been bitten off with teeth. This happened not just once, but several times, but no one had ever seen its form before, as if it were an intangible ghost or living spirit operating in the dark. However, the strange voice's ability to predict or infer things did not seem to be of any great harm, but each time the thread was broken, the family would immediately suffer some loss, and the strange occurrence was what troubled them the most. This is a general outline of the supernatural incidents that have occurred in the county, but to put it simply, these strange happenings are nothing more than formless, intangible monsters that make strange whistling noises in the air and perform all sorts of strange deeds. If this is really true, it must be said to be truly strange and mysterious. In order to research this great strange occurrence, it is first necessary to find out what kind of imagination the people of that region have about it. With this in mind, I have collected what various people have to say, but these are merely the various theories listed below. One person imagined that a girl aged 18 or 19 who had been raised in their house for a long time was possessed by a fox, raccoon dog, or snake, which was causing such strange happenings. Some say that the woman had once had a relationship with a man who worshipped a fox, and that this fox was the one who was causing this. Others immediately assumed that the woman was a fox-possessed sufferer or a demon. Not only that, but even those who were in charge of magic or prayer in the area said that she was possessed by a fox, a raccoon dog, or a snake. These theories differ somewhat, but ultimately they all say that something had possessed the woman, causing her to do these strange things. And so the head of the household, Mr. Sugimoto, also believed this. However, a few people concluded that this was not the case with possession by a fox or a raccoon dog, and believed that the woman was deliberately causing these strange things to happen. Therefore, it can be said that there are two imaginative theories about this mysterious incident held by people in the area: the possession theory and the intentional theory. Furthermore, looking at the opinions of outsiders, neither of these theories has any solid basis and are nothing more than pure speculation, so they should not be readily believed. First, let me point out some doubts about the possession theory. If it was indeed a fox or a raccoon dog that had possessed the girl, there should have been some abnormality in her mental state. However, when one carefully observes the girl's speech and actions, they are no different from any normal person. So why is it that not a single sign of mental abnormality can be found? Even so, there are still some doubts about the intentional theory. What could be the reason for this? The girl was originally uneducated, so there was no way she could have predicted things or had the power of insight, and therefore there was no way she could give appropriate answers to questions from others. In particular, the strange voice was a kind of strange voice that did not seem to come from a girl's mouth, and yet it did not sound as if it was coming from inside the woman's body. Some have put forward various theories based on this, but the more they delve into the theory, the more strange the supernatural thing becomes, and the more mysterious it becomes, until no explanation is found and there is no choice but to remain silent. However, there is a man in the village named Nakamura Totaro. This person had previously been one of the staff at the Philosophy Museum, and was also paying close attention to the study of supernatural creatures, but he had requested that I come to the museum immediately to report the whole story in detail and to conduct an experiment to inform local volunteers of the purpose of establishing the Philosophy Museum, in order to request that I examine the mysterious incident. I therefore accepted the invitation and traveled to the place, and after investigating on the ground, I resolved to examine the matter no matter what. Thus, I left Tokyo early in the morning on the 25th of last month, and arrived in Inohara village, Kitatsuru County, Koshu, that evening. That night, I spent the night there and met Mr. Totaro Nakamura, as planned. The next day, the 26th, I headed to village, the exact location of the monster, with Mr. Nakamura's guidance from early in the morning. The village is only about 1.5 miles from Inohara, so I arrived there shortly and first went to Mr. Nakamura's house to rest. After a while, Mr. Nagayama Sugimoto came to the house to see me, and we told each other the details of the mysterious events. According to his story, the mysterious voice always came from the girl's vicinity, and was never heard where the girl was not present. Furthermore, while at first the mysterious voice could only be heard at Mr. Sugimoto's house, later it could be heard in every house where the girl was frequented. In fact, it is said that it was also heard at Mr. Nakamura's house when the girl had previously visited. From this, it is clear that there is a close relationship between the girl and the mysterious voice. Therefore, I felt that the first step in my research into this mysterious event should be to make a detailed observation of the girl's personal circumstances and to carry out appropriate tests. First, I asked Mr. Sugimoto about the girl's history, and found out that her name was Toku, and that she was born in Agatayama, Tsuru County, the same country, and was raised by her mother who had lost her father at an early age, but at the age of 11 she was adopted by Mr. Sugimoto and was raised in his home for the past 7 years, turning 18 this year. However, in recent years, her biological mother left Agatayama and moved to a place called Kamabashi, where she rents a house and lives. Kamabashi is a village along the Kofu Highway, about 4 or 5 ri away from Ome village, but for some reason, Toku has been eagerly hoping to leave Ome village and return to her biological mother in Kamabashi, and her biological mother has also wanted to take her back. But Mr. Sugimoto has not agreed to this, so Toku has no choice but to stay in Ome village. At this point, I asked Mr. Sugimoto, why does the girl want to return to Kamabashi? Mr. Sugimoto replied, it must be because Kamabashi is on the Kofu Highway, so it is quite lively and convenient, but our Ome village is sandwiched between mountains and valleys, so it is inconvenient in every way. So I asked further if I could meet the girl, to which Sugimoto replied, Toku had returned to her parents' home about a week ago, but when I heard that the teacher was coming today, I sent a messenger yesterday asking him to please return to the village, and he finally arrived just a few minutes ago and is now waiting at a neighbor's house. He then immediately went out to accompany her. So, I first observed her behavior, and although she is still young, she did not appear to be the least bit afraid of foreigners, and it was as if she looked down on others. Therefore, she has a reputation in the village as a tomboy. The first thing to test with this girl is whether there is anything abnormal with her mental functioning. If this test proves that there is nothing abnormal in the mind, then we can be sure that the subject is not possessed by a fox or snake. Therefore, I posed various questions and noted the answers, but found no abnormalities in the order or communication of the words. I also conducted various visual tests to see if there were any hallucinations or delusions, but found no signs of either. I then hypnotized the subject for about 10 minutes using a few methods, but he still felt no sensation. These tests make it clear that the theory that he was possessed by a fox or snake is a completely unfounded delusion. Next, I tried to listen to the strange whistling sound to find out where it was coming from, but I was unable to hear it during my stay of almost 3 or 4 hours. However, before the girl came to Nakamura's house where I was resting, a strange voice was heard from the neighboring house, saying, "Let's not go west from here today." However, Nakamura's house is exactly to the west, so it seems that the voice was never heard. Thus, when the girl left me and went to the neighboring house again, a strange voice was heard again, saying, "I never went to the neighboring house with a girl. If a guest from the neighboring house comes to this house, I will immediately leave this house and go to another house." In the meantime, it was already approaching noon. In the afternoon of that day, I had a long-awaited speech at Unohara Hafukuji Temple, so I hurriedly left the village and returned to Unohara, where I gave a speech to the local volunteers about the purpose of expanding the Philosophy Museum. However, the local volunteers were asked to stay for another day, and I also wanted to go to village again the next day to hear the strange voice, but since there was supposed to be an excursion to the Philosophy Museum on the 28th, I returned to Tokyo without accomplishing my goal. Unfinished. The above is the actual situation of the strange incident that occurred in the county this time, but from here I would like to briefly express my opinion on this mysterious incident. However, although I was not able to hear the strange voice myself, I was able to clarify the situation somewhat through the conversations with Sugimoto and Nakamura, so I will use this to make an appraisal. The fact that the cause of this mysterious incident is something related to Sugimoto's adopted daughter, Toku, has already been clearly proven by the facts obtained from all sides and by investigation, so there is no need to explain this point any further. Therefore, The only issue that comes to mind when researching this mysterious phenomenon is whether the girl is doing this because she is possessed by a fox or raccoon dog, or whether she is doing it intentionally. However, from a brief test, I found that there was nothing abnormal in the girl's mental functioning, so I have no hesitation in saying that she is definitely not the result of being possessed by a fox or raccoon dog. Therefore, there is no doubt that it is what I call a false monster, that is, a man-made or intentional monster. So, I will now attempt to list some evidence. Firstly, that whistling-like strange voice seemed to come from nowhere and sounded as if it definitely did not come from the girl's mouth. However, there is no justification for using this to immediately prove that it is not the girl's voice. It would be one thing if the strange voice never came from our mouths, but it is said that anyone with a little skill can easily make a similar voice. In fact, since the appearance of this strange phenomenon, children in the neighborhood have been whistling to make imitations of the voice, and those who are skilled at it are said to be almost unable to distinguish it from the real thing. If that is so, then perhaps the girl also came to be able to make such a strange voice through skill. If we hear that there is a type of art in the West called ventriloquism, or ventriloquism, then the strange voice is probably a type of ventriloquism. This art is the art of speaking without moving the mouth and tongue, and it is said that it first arose in Greece, where it was believed to be a magical voice at the time. If this is the case, then of course the voice does not come from between the lips and tongue, but probably from around the throat, so it is only natural that it is difficult to pinpoint its location by listening to it. The location of the sound is not easy to know just by listening to it. When we hear other people's language in our daily lives, we know that the voice is coming from a certain mouth not only by the sense of the ear, but also by the help of the sense of the eye, by seeing the movement of the lips and tongue in response to the certain language. However, that strange voice may be no different from that of a certain woman, but the lips and tongue do not move in response to it. Furthermore, since the voice is strange and unfamiliar, it can only be sensed by the ears and cannot be assisted by the eyes. This is because the location is not clearly known. Secondly, because the voice has the power of prediction and insight, it is still necessary to conclude that the voice did not suddenly originate from within the woman's body. Whatever the reason, it is usually possible to know the age of other people, even by imagination, and it is of course certain that the age of the person with whom the woman usually associates is known. How can this be called strange? If the woman were to predict events occurring in Western countries thousands of miles away that she had never known, that would be truly strange, but for her to predict and understand events occurring within the village where she lives is not enough to be called strange. According to Sugimoto's story, when he once had a toothache and asked the strange voice for a cure, it was answered that he should use a piece of wood that had split open due to a lightning strike. This seems extremely strange, yet is not really strange, because such a method of treatment is commonly passed down in that area. A woman who was suffering from pain in her finger due to a swelling asked for a remedy, and was told to mix a certain tree with a certain herb and take it. However, the name of the herb was not clearly stated, and although she asked repeatedly, she still did not know. It is said that there was a time when the woman collected all the herbs that grew in the area, showed each one to her, and asked if it would work, but she was unable to find the herb. This was probably because the woman had forgotten the name of the herb. Thirdly, the incident of the broken arm is also by no means strange, because this event was necessarily limited to the time of the woman's death. In particular, when the thread accidentally broke while she was weaving, it was the girl's loom, and the family only found out about it when she announced, "A strange thing has just happened to my loom." If it was the girl's fault, there would be nothing suspicious about it. However, it was considered strange only because it was believed that the girl would never play such pranks. Also, when the thread hanging in a corner of the room was cut for no apparent reason, the girl was alone in the house that day, so how could they have known that she had not done it herself, taking advantage of the family's absence? Fourthly, according to Sugimoto's story, the strange whistling voice responding to questions from others was not something that had happened from the beginning. At first, he would just listen to the voice, but after that, when someone asked a question, he would respond to it a little. However, perhaps because he was still not experienced enough, he was still unable to clearly distinguish the 5 syllables, and would only respond according to the method of response that the person asking the question had decided in advance. For example, if there was a person called Nakamura and he wanted to ask his surname, he would ask from nearby, "Is this person Kimura?" And when there was no response, he would ask, "Is this person Watanabe? Kawamura?" And still no answer. When he asked, "Is this person Nakamura?" he would finally get a response with one voice. Also, when it came to things like a person's age, he would respond with a number of voices. Thus, from around February of this year, he was able to distinguish the 5 syllables from the voice slightly and converse well. However, even when it was only a whistling sound, and even after it had reached the point of being able to converse fluently, it progressed from an unclear state to a clear state, and there were signs of it gradually developing and becoming skilled. Therefore, there is no doubt that this strange voice is the product of a monster like a fox or a raccoon dog, and is not something that is produced outside the woman's body. If it were something like a fox or a raccoon dog, why did it not start out by not speaking? The fact that it had become so skilled that it was finally able to converse is, of course, proof that it was the girl's doing. Fifth, I asked Sugimoto what kind of language the strange voice uses, and he said that it is no different from the language used by people in that area. If this is true, then this is proof that the strange voice is caused by the girl. Furthermore, according to Nakamura, the strange voice's words always coincide with the girl's thoughts, and the strange voice does not know what the girl does not know. Also, if there is something difficult to understand in the strange voice's words, they ask the girl about it and receive an explanation. This makes it even more clear that the strange voice is caused by the girl. Sixth, the strange voice and the girl's words never uttered at the same time, but always one after the other. This is also proof that the cause of the strange voice is the girl. Seventh, the strange voice always accompanied the girl and could only be heard wherever she was, so isn't this evidence that it was the girl's doing? In addition, while the girl was in village, she could hear it wherever she went, but when she returned to her parents' home in Kamahashi village, no such strange happenings occurred. Given this, there is little doubt that the girl was so desperate to leave her foster home and return to her parents' home that she purposely did this strange thing. Also, according to Sugimoto's story, the strange voice once said, "If you make your adopted daughter Toku weave a loom, I will definitely stop it," and indeed it did stop Toku from weaving the loom several times after that. However, in that region, women were primarily employed in weaving, and when Toku was not allowed to work in this industry, she had no choice but to live off the land, so at first the foster family refused to let her return to her parents' home. But now they have come to the conclusion that it would be better to let her do as she pleases. If the circumstances surrounding the adopted daughter Toku's personal life are as described above, then there is no reason to believe that this strange incident was deliberate in order for the girl to achieve her wish to return to her parents' home. When understood in this way, this monster is easily explained and there is no need to be suspicious. This is why I assert that it is not a fox-possessed monster, but a man-made monster. Isn't this assertion fortunately not wrong? If so, the fox that possessed the woman was not a wild fox or anything like that, but was probably a kind of selfish fox. The above is based on my half-day observation and the conversations with Sugimoto and Nakamura, and is based on my speculations based on the circumstances, so it cannot be said that I have fully discovered the facts. Furthermore, since it is a deliberate monster, we cannot know the truth unless the person in question clearly states it. However, the intention to widely publicize this is nothing more than to ask for the judgment of knowledgeable people.